कमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सागरं रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादां सरगणकाशी शाखान्तांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनित्य नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणीचरणेन्दु विशेषशून्यादिपाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरव पुरंदर कृष्ण हरि विष्णु 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 हरि हरि हरे राम नाम हरे सर्वशास्त्रार्थीयूष सर्ववेदैक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांतरताभ्य सर्वलोकैक धृतप्रदा सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलित्वान्तोदिताधन्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्या श्रीकृष्णाय नमस्तु मे अदेक बंधो मत्संगीन मत गुरु मन महाधनम मन निस्तारक मन भाग्य आनंद नमस्ते साधु साधुतादाय नदिनी चोच्चताकर हानमंच कदाचिन नाम प्रेमना कृतंते अस्पुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम भगवते वासुदेवाय 3.30.27 onwards कृंतनम चावयवशो गजा गजादिभ्यो भिदापनम पातनम गिरिशिंगेभ्यो रोधनम चाम्बुकर्तयो. Next, his limbs are lopped off, cut off, and torn asunder, entirely torn apart by elephants. He is hurled down from hilltops, and he is also held captive either in water or in a cave. Bhidaya. What is Bhidaya? Oh, Bhidaya. Vidaranasya apanam prapanam. His body is subjected to tearing. 28. So these are all different punishments for different persons. This is the Sanskrit translation. Says, some of them are being bitten by serpents, scorpions, gnats, and so on. Their limbs and parts of their limbs are all being broken apart and torn apart. For some, they are thrown from mountain peaks. Some are arrested inside water or inside a ditch or a cave. So all of these are standard, various standard punishments. 28. यास्तामिस्रान्धतामिस्रा रौरवाद्याश्च यातना भुक्ते नरो वा नारी वा मिथः संगेन निर्मितः. Men and women whose lives are built upon indulgence in illicit sex life are put into many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamisra, Andhatamisra, and Raurava. Materialistic life is based on sex life. The existence of all the materialistic people who are undergoing severe tribulation in the struggle for existence is based on sex. Therefore, in the Vedic civilization, sex is allowed only in a restricted way. It is for the married couple and only for begetting children. See, there's a basic logic behind this whole thing. Vedic civilization is targeted towards nivritti. So because it's targeted towards nivritti, those who are restricted in sexual activity are considered closer to success. And those who do not at all engage in sexual activity are considered to be, they have virtually attained the threshold of success itself. So, but in modern civilization, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, you come across in chapter 16 a civilization that is said to be divine and a civilization that is said to be demoniac. That which accepts Vedic authority is divine, that which does not accept Vedic authority is demoniac. Modern civilization is demoniac because their goal is not to bring everyone to the point of pure spiritual activity in absolute remembrance of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, in Vedic civilization, for instance, a yogi, I'm talking of something like an Ashtanga yoga, okay, he's sitting and he's just meditating on God. He's closed his eyes. He's in pratyahara mode. All of his senses are withdrawn. These people are very much glorified. They're considered to be crowning successes because they completely detached from this world, and he's interested in self-realization and God realization. So more or less that concept has to be understood. This is Vedic civilization. So anything outside of that, when you're dealing with the external world, that itself is materialistic. Bhakti Yoga is beyond this. Bhakti Yoga is beyond this, I must admit. Pure Bhakti Yoga is beyond this. But within Sattva-guna, Raja-guna, Tamo-guna, the highest that you can look for is that of a yogi. Of course, internally also you're supposed to engage in Smarana Bhakti. That is there. But that much only materialistic people can see. So anyway, coming back to this point, therefore, there is the basic sense behind restricting these animalistic impulses. But when sex life is indulgent for sense gratification illegally and illicitly, both the man and the woman avoid severe punishment in this world or after death. In this world also, they are punished by virulent diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea. And in the next life, as we see in this passage of Srimad Bhagavatam, they're put into different kinds of hellish conditions to suffer. In Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, illicit sex life is also very much condemned, and it is said that one who produces children by illicit sex life is sent to hell. Those who produce Varna Sankaras. It is confirmed here in the Bhagavatam that such offenders are put into hellish conditions of life in Tamasra, Dhatamasra, and Gauranga. 29. Atraiva narakasvarga iti mata chakshate ya yatana vai narakyas ta ihapyupalakshitaha. Lord Kapila continued, my dear mother, it is sometimes said that we experience hell or heaven on this planet, for hellish punishments are sometimes visible on this planet also. न च एतत् असंभावितम् अत्रापि राजदण्डे कासां चेत् प्रत्यवाय कृन्तनादि यातनानां तथा स्रक्चन्दन वर्णित 29 स्रक्चन्दन वनिता वनितादि सुखभोगानां च दृश्यमानत्वादित्याह अत्रैवेति. Now, what is being stated here regarding hell or heaven should not be considered to be something impossible. It is not. One should not think that these things are not impossible. They are fantasies, because even in this world, when one is punished by the government, then sometimes there are all kinds of torturous punishments that are given. They're actually cut. I remember one devotee from Italy had once told me there is the Italian mafia, and in the Italian mafia, when they have all these gang wars and all these things. So there have been, it has been noted that when they become very, very angry with some of their opponents, they take them, tie them out, drill a hole to the left of the forehead or in the forehead, and then blood keeps coming out, and he's just tied and left like that until he will, when blood keeps coming out, he'll die slowly over a period of 12 hours or something, or later. So these kind of torments are anyway, they're actually there. They're actually there. So one should not think that this kind of tearing apart and these things don't happen. These things do happen. Sometimes they cut fingers, toes, all kinds of things. These things do happen even in this world. So you should not think that these things are possible. Similarly, regarding heavenly pleasures, also in this world, also there are people who enjoy with garlands, sandalwood, with girls, luxuries. These things the people do have. So because these things are very much visible in this world, one should not think that these are simply just fiction, instructive fiction, just to convince us to follow moral principles. Sometimes unbelievers do not accept these statements of scripture regarding hell. They disregard such authorized descriptions. Lord Kapila therefore confirms them by saying that these hellish conditions are also visible on this planet. It is not that they are only on the planet where Yamaraj lives. On the planet of Yamaraj, the sinful man is given the chance to practice living in the hellish conditions, which he will have to endure in the next life. And then he is given a chance to take birth on another planet to continue his hellish life. For example, if a man is to be punished to remain in hell and eat stool and urine, then first of all, he practices such habits on the planet of Yamaraj. And then he is given a particular type of body, that of a hog, so that he can eat stool and think that he is enjoying life. It is stated previously that in any hellish condition, the conditioned soul thinks he is happy. Otherwise, it would not be possible for him to suffer hellish life. 30. एवं कुटुंबं बिभ्राण उदरं भर एव वा विसृज्येहो भयं प्रेत्य भुङ्क्ते तत्फलम् ईदृशम्. After leaving this body, the man who maintained himself and his family members by sinful activities suffers a hellish life, and his relatives suffer also. Ubhayam, kutumbam, udaram cha. See, after he died, Mritva, he engaged in so much of trouble for the sake of his stomach and for the sake of his family. But later on, he has to simply suffer. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Anvaya. Evam kutumbam vipranaha kalatradi poshanavaraha. This person who is maintaining his kutumba, his family, which means he is nourishing. He is simply absorbed in nourishing his wife and so on. Udaram bharaha swadeha poshana parahava. Or he may be interested only in nourishing his own body. So either he may be doing it with his family or something that looks like a family. Ubhayam kutumbam deham cha. Or else he might be maintaining his family as well as his body. 3 options. Iheva visrujya tyaktva pretya yamalokam prapya. But he has to leave his body, he has to leave his family. And then he attains Yamalok. Idrisham varnita prakaram phalam bhumte. Then he has to experience the consequences as described here. Anubhav, kutumba poshane bibrata thaku. Whether he has dedicated himself to nourishing his family, swiya udara bharane vyasta thaku, or he may be busy in maintaining his own stomach. मृत्युर्प এই স্থানেই কুটুম্ব এবং নিজেদেহ উভয়কে পরিত্যাগ করিয়া, after he dies, he has to give up that family, he has to give up his own body here. পূর্বোক্ত রূপ এই সকল কর্মের ফল যমলোকে ভোগ করিতে হয়. One has to, in accordance with what has been described here, he has to experience the consequences of all the sinful activities that he has carried out in Yamaloka. The mistake of modern civilization is that man does not believe in the next life. But whether he believes or not, the next life is there, and one has to suffer if one does not lead a responsible life in terms of the injunctions of authoritative scriptures like the Vedas and Puranas. Species lower than human beings are not responsible for their actions because they're made to act in a certain way. But in the developed life of human consciousness, if one is not responsible for his activities, then he's sure to get a hellish life as described here in 31. एकः प्रपद्यते ध्वान्तं हित्वेदं स्वकलेवरं कुशलेतरपाथेयो भूतद्रोहेण यद्कृतम्. He goes alone to the darkest regions of hell after quitting the present body, and the money acquired by envying other living entities is the passage money with which he leaves this world. He goes alone. Notice this, alone. Alone. So those who engage in sinful activities will have to will have to experience this. At least in Vedic civilization, you have these sakama karmis, materialistic persons who accept sinless material life. So these people, for instance, in married life, there are ladies who like to be wives of their husband for 7 lifetimes while carrying out dharmarthagama within the boundaries of dharmarthagama. But you look at these sinful people. The sinful people, he has to go alone to hell. Entirely his destiny is alone. He's not reunited with his family members and so on. Of course, if they engage in sinful activities, they also have to go to hell. That also may be there. Kushala itarat papameva patheyam maranapatha bhogyam yasya saha. The food stuff that he eats while going towards death is nothing but the reactions to the sins that he had committed. Bhuta drohena yad bhutam pushtikritam tat sthulam kalevaram itva. He quits his gross body. And it is with those sinful activities, by tormenting other creatures, that he has nourished his body or his family members. One thing we should remember, that paropakara punyaya papaya pidaya. What is that? Paropakara punyaya papaya parapidana. That when you engage in activities when you engage in pious activities, it is automatically beneficial to all. When you engage in sinful activities, it is automatically harmful to others. So sinful activities will naturally lead to this. When a man earns money by unfair means and maintains his family and himself with that money, the money is enjoyed by many members of the family, but he alone goes to hell. A person who enjoys life by earning money or by envying another's life, and who enjoys with family and friends, will have to enjoy alone the resultant sinful reactions accrued from such violent and illicit life. For example, if a man secures some money by killing someone and with that money maintains his family, those who enjoy the black money earned by him are also partially responsible and are also sent to hell, but he who is the leader is especially punished. The result of material enjoyment is that one takes with him the sinful reaction only. not the money. The money earned is left in this world and he takes only the reaction. He does not take the money, means in his next life, he's not going to be rich. Let us say he stole $1 million. Okay. And then in his next life, he's not going to get that $1 million. Probably in the next life also, $1 million that he earns will be lost. In this world also, if a person acquires some money by murdering someone, the family is not hanged, although its members are sinfully contaminated. But the man who commits the murder and maintains his family is himself hanged as a murderer. The direct offender is more responsible for sinful activities than the indirect enjoyer. The great learned scholar Chanakya Pandit says, therefore, that whatever one has in his possession had better be spent for the cause of Sat. It should be spent for a good cause. But Sat, or the personification of all goodness, is actually the Supreme Lord, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because one cannot take his possessions with him. They remain here and they will be lost. Either we leave the money or the money leaves us, but we will be separated. The best use of money, as long as it is within our possession, is to spend it to acquire Krishna consciousness. 32. Daivena asaditam tasya shamalam niraye ma bhumte kutumba poshasya shritavitta ivatura. Thus, by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the maintainer of kinsmen is put into a hellish condition to suffer for his sinful activities, like a man who has lost his wealth. Tasya papakritasya kutamba poshasya shamalam malinyam daiva prapitam kutamba virahitaha eva bhumte. That person who has engaged in sinful activity while nourishing his family, he attains the contamination of sinful reactions brought about by the force of destiny. And he has to experience it in the absence of his family. Just like a man who has lost his wealth. I thought there's something here. We hear that death means 7 months sleep. So whatever punishment or heavenly pleasure he gets in that 7 months, what? In that 7 months, only that happens. No, it may not be only 7 months. It may be longer than that. What is 7 months sleep? That may be under particular circumstance. If he doesn't go to hell, he directly attains another body. If hell is also there, I'm not going to remember if I have been punished also. So why should I care about it? No, but you're going to experience it now. You're going to experience it. Let us say, forget about hell. Let's say in this life. Let us say you live in a country where the government has a policy that if you commit any criminal activity, you'll put in jail. And then before you are released, they inject certain medicines into you by which you forget the punishment that you have experienced. Do you think that people will stop committing crime? They will not stop committing crime. They will still engage in those activities. So whether they care for it or not, the principle of rewarding those who benefit everyone and the principle of punishing those who harm everyone, intentionally or unintentionally, that has to be maintained. Even in the secular world, the people accept that principle. The example set herein is that the sinful person suffers just like a man who has lost his wealth. The human form of body is achieved by the conditioned soul after many, many births and is a very valuable asset. Instead of utilizing this life to get liberation, if one uses it simply for the purpose of maintaining a so-called family and therefore performs foolish and unauthorized action, is compared to a man who has lost his wealth and who upon losing it laments. When wealth is lost, there is no use lamenting, but as long as there is wealth, one has to utilize it properly and thereby gain eternal profit. It may be argued that when a man leaves his money earned by sinful activities, he also leaves his sinful activities here with his money. That means the reactions to his sinful activities here with his money. Well, that is not true, though. But it is especially mentioned herein that by superior arrangement, daivena asadhitam, although the man leaves behind him his sinfully earned money, he carries the effect of it. That effect is called the reaction, sinful reactions. Similarly, when we perform pious activities, the effect of it, which is referred to as pious credits, that goes along with the soul. This basic concept is there in other religions also. In Christianity, it is there. In Islam, it is there. In Judaism, it is there. Buddhism also, it is there. Even though in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they do not believe in reincarnation in general, they believe in afterlife. That the soul continues to live after death in a different place, in a different environment, whatever, but he continues to live. And he has to experience the effects of engaging in pious activities or sinful activities. That is accepted. When a man steals some money, if he is caught and agrees to return it, he is not freed from the criminal punishment. By the law of the state, even though he returns the money, he has to undergo the punishment. Similarly, the money earned by a criminal process may be left by the man when dying. But by superior arrangement, he carries with him the effect, and therefore he has to suffer hellish life. 53. Kevalena hyadharmena kutumbam bharanotsukaha yati jivontathamestram charamam tamasah padam. Therefore, a person who is very eager to maintain his family and kinsmen simply by black method certainly goes to the darkest region of hell, which is known as Andhatamesra Tamasaha Narakasya Padam Sthanam, goes to uh, the ultimate region of darkness. Three words in this verse are very significant. Kevalena means only by black methods. See, so this entire description is of a person who only engages in sinful activity with not an iota of pious activities. Therefore, there's no mention of the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. Kevalena means only by black methods. Adharmena means unrighteous or irreligious. And Kutumba Bharana means family maintenance. Even sinful people, they have family sentiment. Maintaining one's family is certainly the duty of a householder, but one should be eager to earn his livelihood by the prescribed method as stated in the scriptures. In Bhagavad Gita, it is described that the Lord has divided the social system into four classifications of castes or varnas according to quality and worth. Apart from Bhagavad Gita, in every society, a man is known according to his quality and work. For example, when a man is constructing wooden furniture, he is called a carpenter. A man who works with an anvil and iron is called the blacksmith. Similarly, a man who is engaged in the medical or engineering fields has a particular duty and designation. All these human activities are being divided by the Supreme Lord into four varnas, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. In Bhagavad Gita and in other Vedic literatures, the specific duties of the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are mentioned. One should work honestly according to his qualification. He should not earn his livelihood unfairly by means for which he is not qualified. If a Brahmana who works as a priest so that he may enlighten his followers with the spiritual way of life is not qualified as a priest, then he is cheating the public. One should not earn by such unfair means. The same is applicable to a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. It is especially mentioned that the means of livelihood of those who are trying to advance in Krishna consciousness must be very fair and uncomplicated. Here it is mentioned that he who earns his livelihood by unfair means, Kevalena, is sent to the darkest hellish region. Unfair means Kevalena Adharmena, simply by irreligious activities. Okay. What is this? Otherwise, if one maintains his family by prescribed methods and honest means, there is no objection to one's being a family man. 34. अधस्तान् नरलोकस्य यावतीर्यातनादयः क्रमशः समनुक्रम्य पुनरत्र व्रजेच्छुषि. Having gone through all the miserable hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. Yavatyaha yatana. He attains as many punishments as he deserves. Yavat shabdena shva shukradi yonayaha. And it indicates that he's going to attain bodies of dogs, pigs, and so on. Yaha, taha, kramena prapya. He attains them one after another in sequence. Bhogena kshina papaha. And then by experiencing those lives, his sinful reactions are exhausted. Shuchihi san. Then he becomes purified of those sinful reactions. Punaha naratvam prapnuyat. Then he attains a human body again. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, what is this? This is third canto, 30th chapter. Yeah. Any commentary from Madhvacharya here? I don't see. Madhvacharya, no comment. No comment. So that means it's there. Okay, fine. Just as a prisoner who has undergone troublesome prison life is set free again, the person who has always engaged in impious and mischievous activities is put into hellish conditions. And when he has undergone different hellish lives, namely those of lower animals like cats, dogs, and hogs, by the gradual process of evolution, he again comes back as a human being. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that though a person engaged in the practice of the yoga system may not finish perfectly and may fall down for some reason or other, his next life as a human being is guaranteed. It is stated that such a person who has fallen from the path of yoga practice is given a chance in his next life to take birth in a very rich family or in a very pious family. It is interpreted that rich family refers to a big mercantile family because generally people who engage in trades and mercantile business are very rich. One who engaged in the process of self-realization or connecting with the Supreme Absolute Truth but fell short. One who is engaged, okay, one engaged but fell short, is allowed to take birth in such a rich family or in the family of pious Brahmanas. Either way, he is guaranteed to appear in human society in his next life. It can be concluded that if someone is not willing to enter into hellish life, as in Tamisra or Anthat Amisra, then he must take to the process of Krishna consciousness, which is the first class yoga system. Because even if one is unable to attain complete Krishna consciousness in this life, he is guaranteed at least to take his next birth in a human family. He cannot be sent into a hellish condition. Krishna consciousness is the purest life and it protects all human beings from gliding down to hell. to take birth in a family of dogs or hogs. Okay. Chapter 31, Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. X1. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Okay, there's a question here. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, in the verse where this punishment for illicit sex was described, modern people may rebelliously ask that if both parties have agreed, if it's mutually agreed act of illicit sex, why we are being punished? Why not God allow us to enjoy life just like that, without all these interruptions of punishments, without such rules which make us very hard to enjoy?
Why you have been given human body? You could have done this as an animal. Why you want to do these things as human? So you're fit to be animal. And before you get animal body, you need to be trained to be animal. So therefore, this hellish punishment is there. First of all, animal life itself is miserable. In case people don't understand that, so they're just being given, they're being subjected through an orientation session.
Mm-hmm. Yes, true.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Text one.
Yes, Prabhu.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Karmana daiva netreణ चतुर्देहोपपत्तये स्त्रिया प्रविष्ट उदरम Pumsoretah Kanashrayah. The personality of God had said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his birth, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. Yes, got it. It's a book called Vedanta and Embryology. This is all Bhakti-vaibhava. So in this, it talks about this particular portion and shows that it matches what modern science talks. And it's straight from Bhagavatam itself gives this information. So it's not that only this information. See, it's quoting Lord Kapil. This is all Kapil. This is coming from Western science. Sarvatha-darshini. Ekatramshe garbhajanma balyapaugandayatanah भ्रुवाणेनैव जीवस्य भक्तिर्गर्भेऽपि दर्श्यते. Actually, that book, Vedanta and Embryology, could be very good for presenting Krishna consciousness in medical colleges. It could be used possibly as an introduction. Okay. पुनराव्रजेत् 3.30.34 इत्युक्तं tat prakaram darshayati. It was stated that he comes back to the human species. The method by which he comes back, that is pointed out here. Karmana, prachinena, daivam, ishvaraha. In accordance with this ancient karmic reactions, Daiva here refers to Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. Daiva Netrena means being led by Ishvara. Tadeva Netram, Netra Pravartakam. He himself becomes the leader. He leads them. Yasitena, Pravishtaha Bhavati. As stated in the last chapter, after suffering different kinds of hellish conditions, a man comes again to the human form of body. The same topic is continued in this chapter. In order to give a particular type of human form to a person who has already suffered hellish life, the soul is transferred to the semen of a man who is just suitable to become his father. During sexual intercourse, the soul is transferred through the semen of the father into the mother's womb in order to produce a particular type of body. This process is applicable to all embodied living entities, but it is especially mentioned for the man who was transferred to the Anthatamisra hell. After suffering there, when he who has had many types of hellish bodies like those of dogs and hogs is to come again to the human form, he is given the chance to take his birth in the same type of body from which he degraded himself to hell. So a lot of interesting information Prabhupada is providing the background. Everything is done by the supervision of the Supreme Personality of God. Material nature supplies the body, but it does so under the direction of the Super Soul. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that a living entity is wandering in this material world on a chariot made by material nature. The Supreme Lord, as Super Soul, is always present with the individual soul. He directs material nature to supply a particular type of body to the individual soul according to the result of his work, and the material nature supplies it. Here, one word, Retah Kanashrayaha, is very significant because it indicates that it is not the semen of the man that creates life within the womb of a woman. Rather, the living entity, the soul, takes birth in a particle of semen and is then pushed into the womb of a woman. Then the body develops. There is no possibility of creating a living entity without the presence of the soul simply by sexual intercourse. The materialistic theory that there is no soul and that a child is born simply by material combination of the sperm and ovum is not very feasible. It is unacceptable. 2. Kalalam Tvekaratrena Pancharatrena Budbudam Dashahena Tukarkandhu Peshyandam Vatatah Param. On the first night, the sperm and ovum mix, and on the fifth night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum, and after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be. Kalalam Shukrashonita Mishritam Bhavati Budbudam Buddha Akaram, like a bubble, ferments into a bubble. Karkanduhu Badari Phala Akaram, like a plum. Kathinam Peshi Maum Sapindam. Jarayu Prakriti. Where is this coming from? Is it different reading or what? Kandu Peshyandam Vatatah Param. Should be like this. Peshi, Mamsapindam, Jarayu Prakriti. Andam, Pakshyadivansh. So it becomes an egg in the species of birds and so on. The body of the soul develops in 4 different ways. This is correctly typed or what? Oh, this is elaborately quoted from From Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Leela, chapter 1, verses 201 to 240. A lot of details here. Okay. The body of the soul develops in 4 different ways according to its different sources. One kind of body, that of the trees and plants, sprouts from the earth. The second kind of body grows from perspiration, as with flies, germs, and bugs. The third kind of body develops from eggs, and the fourth develops from an embryo. This verse indicates that after emulsification of the ovum and sperm, the body gradually develops either into a lump of flesh or into an egg, as the case may be. In the case of birds, it develops into an egg, and in the case of animals and human beings, it develops into a lump of flesh. See, normally when one engages in sexual activity, it is expected that the woman will become pregnant unless certain conditions don't match, like if she is infertile, or if they do something by which uh, the pregnancy is prevented. Otherwise, through natural sexual activity, definitely, and the woman will become pregnant. So Prabhupada also gives this argument, saying that so a soul is come in order to take birth, but if before the soul comes you burn up that place, then are you not tormenting that soul? Is it not a criminal activity? It's like one Christian Roman Catholic lady, she gave this example on what's wrong with contraception. She said, if it is one thing to say, I don't want, let's say you have some children. There are children, say that's a school, children's school, and you're quite bothered about these children. And let us say that since you don't like children, you spray their classroom, empty classroom, with poisonous fumes so that any child who comes inside will die. Now, is that not a criminal activity? So similarly, she argued that when people use various contraceptive methods, there are certain methods which use poison to ensure that uh, no child is conceived. So she compared this to that. She said, no, it is wrong. It is a criminal activity, and for which God will certainly punish them. 3. Maseno tu shirodvabhyam bahvangriyadyanga vigraha nakhal lomasti charmani linkachidrodbhavastribhi. In the course of a month, a head is formed, and at the end of 2 months, the hands, feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body hair, bones, and skin appear, as do the organ of generation and the other apertures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and anus. Dvabhyam masabhyam vigraha vibhaga. At the end of 2 months, the different divisions of the body, they take shape. 4. Chaturbhir dhatava sapta panchabhikshutrin udbhava षड्भिर जरा युना वीत कुक्षौ भ्राम्यति दक्षिणे. Within 4 months from the date of conception, the 7 essential ingredients of the body, namely, I don't know how you pronounce this, chyle, whatever, blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, and semen, come into existence. At the end of 5 months, hunger and thirst make themselves felt, and at the end of 6 months, the fetus, enclosed by the amnion, begins to move on the right side of the abdomen. Jarayuna Garbhaveshtanena Vidaha Pravrataha Dakshine Kukshaviti, on the right side of the abdomen. Purusham Adhikrata Uktatva. This is with reference to the male. Pum garbha dakshine, stri garbha vame iti prasiddha. It is well known that if it is a female child, then begins to move on the left side of the abdomen. That is well known. When the body of the child is completely formed at the end of 6 months, the child, if he is male, begins to move on the right side, and if female, she tries to move on the left side. 6.5. Matur jagdhanna panadyair edhadhatur rasammate shete vinmutrayor garte sa jantur jantu sambhave. After deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms. Edhad dhaturati. The various ingredients of the body of the child are now increasing. In other words, it's growing. And then he quotes from Markandeya Purana. Nadi chapyayani nama nabhyam tasya nibadhyate strinam tadhantra shushire sa nibaddhopajayate kramante bhuktapitani strinam garbhodare tatha. What is it? Tari. आप्यायित देहोऽसौ जन्तुर्बुद्धिम् उपैति च इति Markandeya Purana. So according to the Markandeya Purana, it's a complicated description. I'll leave it. Just take it from here. In the Markandeya Purana, it is said that in the intestine of the mother, the umbilical cord, which is known as Apyayani, joins the mother to the abdomen of the child, and through this passage, the child within the womb accepts the mother's assimilated foodstuff. Nadi chapyayini nama nabhyam tasya nibadhyate. In this way, the child is fed by the mother's intestine within the womb and grows from day to day. This statement of the Markandeya Purana about the child's situation within the womb is exactly corroborated by modern medical science. And thus the authority of the Puranas cannot be disproved, as is sometimes attempted by the Mayavadi philosophers. The child, with the umbilical cord, is held, it connects to the navel of the child. So in that way, he is tied up. Since the child depends completely on the assimilated foodstuff of the mother, during pregnancy there are restrictions on the food taken by the mother. Too much salt, chili, onion, and similar food is forbidden for the pregnant mother because the child's body is too delicate and new for him to tolerate such pungent food. Restrictions and precautions to be taken by the pregnant mother, as enunciated in the spiritual scriptures of Vedic literature, are very useful. We can understand from the Vedic literature how much care is to be taken to beget a nice child in society. The Garbhadana ceremony before sexual intercourse was compulsory for persons in the higher grades of society. It is very scientific. Other processes recommended in the Vedic literature during pregnancy are also very important. To take care of the child is a primary duty of the parents, because if such care is taken, society will be filled with good population to maintain the peace and prosperity of the society, country, and human race. 6. All right. Yes.
Prabhu, this expression that he remains there in that abominable residence of stools and urine. So he is not exactly residing in stool and urine.
No, it's all in the same spot, around the same spot.
But this bodily section of womb, it is different from that excretory system.
Okay, but you're just like, imagine if inside your own room there's a toilet.
Yes, bro.
Not a very congenial environment. 6. Krimibhi Shatasarvanga Saukumari Yat Pratikshanam Murchamaapnotyurukleshas Tatratyai Shutitair Muhu. Bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition. The miserable condition of material existence is not only felt when we come out of the womb of the mother, but is also present within the womb. Miserable life begins from the moment the living entity begins to contact this material body. Unfortunately, we forget this experience and do not take the miseries of birth very seriously. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is specifically mentioned that one should be very alert to understand the specific difficulties of birth and death. Just as during the formation of this body, we have to pass through so many difficulties within the womb of the mother. At the time of death, there are also many difficulties. As described in the previous chapter, one has to transmigrate from the body, from one body to another, and the transmigration into the bodies of dogs and hogs is especially miserable. But despite such miserable conditions, due to the spell of Maya, we forget everything and become enamored by the present so-called happiness, which is described as actually no more than a contraction to distress. 7. Katu Tikshnoshnal Lavana Rukshmamladibherulbanai Matribhuktai Rupasprishta Sarvangothita Vedana. Owing to the mothers eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable. Ulbanai, dussahai, excessive, excessive to an intolerable extent. Ulbena, jarayuna, where is that? Oh, that is the next. Fine. All descriptions of the child's bodily situation in the womb of the mother are beyond our conception. It is very difficult to remain in such a position, but still the child has to remain. Because his consciousness is not very developed, the child can tolerate it. Otherwise, he would die. That is the benediction of Maya, who endows the suffering body with the qualifications for tolerating such terrible tortures. 8. Ulbena samvritastasmin antraischa bahiravritah aste kritva shirah kuksha bhugna prishta shirodhara. Placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen, his head turned towards his belly, and his back and neck arched like a bow. Ulbena jarayona kutilibhuta prishtagriva aste. So he is curved. His back and neck are arched. If a grown man were put into such a condition as the child within the abdomen, completely entangled in all respects, it would be impossible for him to live even for a few seconds. Unfortunately, we forget all these sufferings and try to be happy in this life, not caring for the liberation of the soul from the entanglement of birth and death. It is an unfortunate civilization in which these matters are not plainly discussed to make people understand the precarious condition of material existence. 9. अकल्पस्वाङ्गचेष्टायां शकुन्त इव पञ्जरे तत्र लब्धस्मृतिर्दैवात् कर्मजन्म शतोद्भवम् स्मरन् दीर्घम् अनुच्छ्वासम् शर्म किं नाम विन्दते. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage without freedom of movement. Actually, when you think about it, a bird in a cage would be finding it quite difficult now, because birds have the ability to fly quite easily and they're used to freedom of movement. And if you put them inside a cage, it's quite difficult. So the child is in that situation. At that time, If the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births and he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? Daivat. Purva karma vashat. Dirgham chirakalam vyapya. So if, where is it? Daivat. By fortune, he regains his memory. He gains his memory. If he is fortunate, that means by the force of some previous action. Dirgham. Anuchvasa. So then he grieves wretchedly. Chirakalam yapya anuchvasam yatha bhavati evam smara. So in this difficult situation where he sighs repeatedly in distress, what kind of peace can he have? Because he's also remembering all these difficulties that he went through in the past for a long period of time. After birth, the child may forget about the difficulties of his past lives. But when we are grown up, we can at least understand the grievous tortures undergone at birth and death by reading the authorized scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. If we do not believe in the scriptures, that is a different question. But if we have faith in the authority of such descriptions, then we must prepare for our freedom in the next life. That is possible in this human form of life. One who does not take heed of these indications of suffering and human existence is said to be undoubtedly committing suicide. It is said that this human form of life is the only means for crossing over the nations of Maya or material existence. We have a very efficient boat in this human form of body. This human form of body is compared to a very efficient boat. And that's a very expert captain, the spiritual master. And Krishna supplies the bona fide spiritual master to whoever desires to get out of material existence. The spiritual injunctions are like favorable winds. If we do not cross over the ocean of the nations of material existence in spite of all these facilities, then certainly we are all intentionally committing suicide. This is right from 11th canto. Okay, question.
Prabhu, if the child is fortunate, so what makes one fortunate for this remembrance?
I think it's going to come now. I think it's going to come.
Okay.
Then, आरभ्य सप्तमान मासाल लब्धबोधोऽपि वेपितः नैकत्रास्ते सूतिवातैर्विष्ठा भूरिव सोदरः. Thus, endowed with the development of consciousness from the 7th month after his conception, the child is tossed downward by the airs that press the embryo during the weeks preceding delivery. Like the worms born of the same filthy, abominable cavity, he cannot remain in one place. Suti hetubhir vatair vepitaha sodaraha samana udarajanma ishtabhu krimihi iva. Like worms born of the same abdominal cavity. At the end of the 7th month, the child is moved by the bodily air and does not remain in the same place, for the entire uterine system becomes slackened before delivery. The worms have been described here as Sodara. Sodara means born of the same mother. Since the child is born from the womb of the mother and the worms are also born of fermentation within the womb of the same mother, under the circumstances, the child and the worms are actually brothers. We are very anxious to establish universal brotherhood among human beings, but we should take into consideration that even the worms are our brothers, what to speak of other living entities. Therefore, we should be concerned about all living entities. 11. Nathamana Rishirvhita Sapta Vadrih Kritanjalihi Stuvita Tam Viklavaya Vacha Yeno Darerpita. Oh, what is that? So much. This is Yoga Swami's comment is a lot. Okay, anyway. the living entity in this frightful condition of life, bound by 7 layers of material ingredients, prays with folded hands, appealing to the Lord. Who has put him in that condition? Nathamana Bhagavad Kripa Mai Bhuyat Swasmin Ashisham Kurvan Rishi Atmadarshi Bhitah Samsara Sapta Vadhrayah Bandhana Bhuta Dhatavah Yasyasa. So this self-realized soul, Rishi means a self-realized soul. He desires the Lord's blessings. He appeals to the Supreme Lord. May the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead be on me. He is frightened. He is frightened of material existence. And he is Saptavadri. He is bound by 7 layers, 7 dhatus. Viklavaya, Yakulaya, Tam Stuvita. So then, with the faltering voice, he prays. Iti garbhe vidyade sambhava bhava hetu hetuvatur ling iti phale ling. ततश्च यो भगवन्तं भजेत स तं गर्भेऽपि स्तुवित इति अन्यः जीवस्तु न स्तुवित इति अर्थः लभ्यते. So here stuvita simply indicates that he would be praying. The point is that soul who appeals to the Supreme Lord for mercy and is frightened of material existence, that soul would be praying with folded hands. Not that every soul. So the point is that soul who engages in devotion service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even in the womb of his mother, he would pray to the Supreme Lord. Other living entities would not pray to the Supreme Lord. That is a natural implication here. Tasya eva, what is it? Astavan? Or Astavan? Why Astavan? Wait, I think something is not properly typed. Nathaman? Should be Nathaman. Wait. Then भजेत सतं गर्भेऽपि स्तुविते इत्यन्यो जीवस्तु न स्तुविते इत्यर्थो लभ्यते तस्यैव अस्तवानस्य अस्तवानस्य जीवस्य अग्रे संसारः वर्णयिष्यते वर्णितश्च न तु भगवन्तं स्तुवानस्यापि. So for that soul who does not pray to the Supreme Lord, his experience of material life is going to be described now, and it has been described previously also. Not for one who is praying to the Supreme Personality of God. Akamadapi ye Vishno sakrit pujam prakurvate natesham bhavabandastu kadachit api jayate. Artha Pancharatra looks like that person who, without any materialistic desire, he engages in worship of Lord Vishnu. He is not bound to material existence at all. Sakradeva prapanno yastavasmiti che yachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadami etad pratam hare ityadi. And that's a statement that Lord Hari has taken a vow that that person who once surrenders unto the Lord, saying, my dear Lord, I belong to you, and he begs for the Supreme Lord to protect him, certainly Lord Hari, he takes a vow that I will protect this person, I will free him from all kinds of dangers. Parah sahasra vachana virodha. So there are statements like this, there are thousands of statements like this. So the one who is actually praying to the Supreme Lord for mercy, he is not going to experience material existence and again be overcome by shoka, moha, bhaya. Ateva shete vinmutriyor garte iti murshana मूर्छना आपनोति उरुक्लेशे इत्यास्ते कृत्वा शिर इत्यादि पद दशमास्यः हरिं दशमास्यः जीव हरिं स्तौति इति वर्तमानप्रयोगः न कृतः किन्तु जीव उवाच इति भूतकालप्रयोगे एव. Therefore, here in this description, certain verbs are presented in present tense. He lies in a ditch filled with stool, urine. Present tense. He attains murchana, fainting. He faints. Present tense. He experiences extreme pain. Present tense. Jiva of 10 months prays to Lord Hari. Present tense. These kind of expressions are not put here. Rather, Jiva Vacha, the Jiva said, this is past tense. तेन च पूर्वकालभवः कश्चित् भक्तः जीवः एवं गर्भे हरिं स्तुवान आसीत् न तु सर्व इति अर्थः ज्ञापितः. So from this it is understood that some devotee of the Lord, some Jiva, when he was in the womb of his mother, he was praying to Lord Hari in this manner. This is not the case with all the living entities. अतएव नैरुक्तापि पठन्ति नवमे सर्वांग संपूर्णो भवति. In the 9th month, in Nirukti also we read, in the 9th month, all the bodies become, all the parts of the body become complete. Iti patitva mitaschaham punarjato jataschaham punarmita ityadi tad bhavana pathantaram avamukha pidhyamana jantuschaiva samanvitah sankhya-yogam samabhyaset purusham va panchavinshakam tatascha dashame masi prajayate ityadi. Purusham va इति गर्भोपनिषद वाक्यम. अत्र वा शब्द बला कश्चित् कर्मी जीवः मृतः च अहं पुनर्जातः इत्यादि पूर्व जन्मात्रं स्मरति. So he is quoting from various authoritative statements that I have died, I take birth again, now I am born, I will die again. And after a description of such contemplation, his head is put down, is put in great pain, and this creature, he then practices Sankhya Yoga or remembers the 25th element, the Lord. And then in the 10th month, he takes birth. Purusham Va also appears in the Garbha Upanishad. That's also a Garbha Upanishad. Atra Va Shabda Balad. And Va indicates either he does like this, or he does like that, or he does like that, and so on. That indicates that sometimes the Jiva might be a pious karmi. So then he remembers, okay, I've died, now I've taken birth. So he simply remembers his previous, he remembers every one of his past births. Kaschid Gyani Sankhyan, Kaschid Yogi Yogam, Kaschid Bhaktaha Chaturvimsha Pradhanat Param Panchavimsham Purusham Parameshwaram Abhyaset Bhajet iti Purva Abhyas Purva Abhyastameva Garbhe Spure iti Yukte. So sometimes he may be engaged in karma, so he remembers that. Or if he's a Jnani Jiva, then he will be remember Sankhya, which here refers to Vedanta Darshan. Or he might be a yogi, so then he will remember Yoga Darshan. Or he may be a devotee, Bhakta of Lord Vishnu, and therefore he remembers the 25th element, the Supreme Lord. So in this way, he would be absorbed in his previous practice. In fact, that previous practice would appear even in the womb. The living entity in this frightful condition of life, bound by 7 layers of material ingredients, prays with folded hands, appealing to the Lord who has put him in that condition. It is said that when the woman is having labor pain, she promises that she will never again become pregnant and suffer from such a severely painful condition. Similarly, when one is undergoing some surgical operation, he promises that he will never again act in such a way as to become diseased and have to undergo medical surgery. Or when one falls into danger, he promises that he will never again make the same mistake. Similarly, the living entity put into a hellish condition of life prays to the Lord that he will never again commit sinful activities and have to be put into the womb for repeated birth and death. In the hellish condition within the womb, the living entity is very much afraid of being born again. But when he is out of the womb, when he is in full life and good health, he forgets everything and commits again and again the same sins for which he was put into that horrible condition of existence. Okay, just 1 minute. Very nice. Okay. Yes.
Prabhupada is giving here the impression that almost all the living entities prays like that. And then because Prabhupada says that within the womb he prays and then when he comes out he forgets. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he mentions like that one who prays in the womb, they are very pious souls and they do not have to go through these kinds of situation because they remember all those things and then they act in that way. So how we'll understand this statement of Prabhupada that in the womb he prays and then he forgets when they are in the full life, the good health, they forget.
Well, let's go through this section, then we'll see how Prabhupada deals with it. Certainly, he had Vishnu Chakravarti's commentary, Jiva Goswami's commentary in front of him. Despite that, he is speaking like this, means there's a reason for it. Let's go through it and we'll see. Well, Jantruvacha, Tasyopasannam Avitum Jagadikshaya, Tasyopasannam Avitum Jagadikshayata, Nanatanor Bhuvichalat Charanaravindam, Soham Vrajam Sharanam Syakato Bhyam Me Ye Nidrishi Gatiradarsya Sato Nurupa. The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. Bhuvi chalat iti Shri Krishnavatara Viprayena iti Swami Charana. He walks on the surface of the world. This refers to Lord Shri Krishna, the incarnation of Lord Shri Krishna. According to Srila Sridhar Swami. Atra lingam. The lingam. Grihitanatanuriti tasyeva sarva avataritva. Oh, okay. The reason why he's saying that this refers to Lord Krishna is because of this expression, Atananatano, which means that he has accepted various forms. And because Lord Krishna himself is the Sarva Avatari, he is the source of all the incarnation. Apiloktischa iyam purvakalpagata tad avatara apekshaya iti sandarbha. And Kramasandarbha says the statement of Lord Kapila is with reference to an incarnation of Lord Krishna that pertained to the Kalpa during which Lord Kapila spoke this. Idrishi Garbha Dukha Uddadhi Nivasal Lakshanagatihi Asadhava Mama Samuchita Eva Adarshi Darshita. So it is appropriate that I am such an unsaintly person and I have attained a situation characterized by having to live in this ocean of distress that is the womb of my mother. Yadva Adarshi. Another meaning is Kripa Drishti Vishayi Krita. Anyatha Yam Tadiye Spurti Mama Ati Papishtasya Na Sambhavediti Bhava. This situation has attracted the merciful glance of the Lord. Otherwise, this revelation about the Supreme Lord would not take place for me because I am excessively sinful. That is the implication. The word Chalat Charanarvindam refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead who actually walks or travels upon the surface of the world. For example, Lord Ramachandra actually walked on the surface of the world, and Lord Krishna also walked just like an ordinary man. The praise therefore offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead who descends to the surface of this earth or any part of this universe for the protection of the pious and the destruction of the impious. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that when there is an increase of irreligion and discrepancies arise in the real religious activities, the Supreme Lord comes to protect the pious and kill the impious. This verse indicates Lord Krishna. Another significant point in this verse is that the Lord comes, Ichchaya, by his own will, as Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita. Sambhavami Atma Maya, I appear at my will, by my internal potency. He is not forced to come by the laws of material nature. It is stated here, Ichchaya. It does not assume any form. He does not assume any form as the impersonalist thing because he comes at his own will. And the form in which he descends is his eternal form. As the Supreme Lord puts the living entity into the condition of horrible existence, he can also deliver him. And therefore, one should seek shelter at the Lord's feet of Krishna. Krishna demands, give up everything and surrender unto me. It's also said in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who approaches him does not come back again to accept a form in material existence, but goes back to Godhead, back home, never to return. Yes.
Prabhu, in the first verse, when it was said, Pumsa Reto Kanashraya, so I want to know, this soul comes into that particle of semen at that time, or he's beforehand residing in the semen in the body of the male?
No, he comes at that time.
From where?
From the previous birth. See, he was, let us say, he was in the body of a dog or pig or whatever. Then when he dies, he leaves that body now. So then he comes. By the force of destiny, he is led exactly to that particular semen of that particular man who is going to become his father.
So in Bhagavad Gita, when there was that slok in 3rd chapter, Annat Bhavanti Bhutani, and that cycle was described that from Swargaloka it fell down, the living entity falls down as rain, rain is absorbed by plants.
For those who go to Swarga. That is for those who go to Swarga.
But even for that, it is saying that they go from rain to plants, from plants, the plants are eaten by humans, then it takes shelter of humans, and then he is injected.
Through a process called Panchagni Vidya. So those who follow that process, for them that there's a different way how they come. For
Oh,
them,
it's
that's a
not
daily process.
this.
That
This
is
is
for
not
those
for
who-
everyone.
No, that's not for everyone, obviously. First of all, they're coming from Swarga. Okay.
So they choose their father in a way.
What?
So are they able to choose their father in this way? Those who are falling from Swarga.
That we have to see in the scriptures whether they are. As far as I know, no. Because it's Daiva Netra. It's all arranged by providence.
Okay, bro.
Okay. So we'll stop with that. On Shakalpadru Veshu, Pasandabhyeva Chapatitanam Pavanibhyo Veshu Namo Namaha.